them, learn, right, Simon, we got to learn from the Avot. We got to learn from their actions, whether it's the alacrity, the movement, the swiftness of Rivka to do chesed, or whether it's the prayer of Eliezer, the importance of praying. These are some of the things we have to learn from the weekly parasha. Okay, we are on Lamed Dalet Amud Aleph. We are on 34a on the bottom of the page. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Shoma, if you heard Teisha Tekiyot, if you heard 9 Tekiyot, now we're turning the page, right? It says, Omar B'yocha, if you heard 9 Tekiyot, B'teisha Shot B'yom, over 9 hours of the day, 9 hours of the day, every hour, you heard another sound. Okay, that means the person blew a tekiah at, let's say, he brought a tekiah at 8 a.m. And then he blew the next sound. We know we have 3 sets, right? Because the Torah says truah 3 times. And each truah, which is a truah is a breaking sound, each truah needs to be preceded by a straight sound, a tekiah, a tu, and has to be followed by a tekiah. So we have a tekiah, straight sound, Aaron, breaking sound, straight sound. We said we do, and the Torah says, repeat that 3 times. We learn out they have to do that 3 times. Straight, break, and straight. Straight, break, and straight. Straight, break, and straight. So if you do that 3 times, a total of 9 sounds, right? Each set is of 3. And we said on a Torah level, that's how you would fulfill the mitzvah. You have to blow 9 sounds. But we said we're not sure what is that breaking sound, right? We said it's the breaking sound, what we call a truah. It's the breaking sound what we call a shvarim. Shvarim, which means a break. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Or it's a breaking sound, a combo of 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So we do all 3 combinations. And when we do all 3 combinations, you know you fulfilled the biblical obligation by doing 30 sounds. Because if you do tekiah, shvarim, truah, tekiah 3 times, that's 4 sounds. Tekiah is 1 sound, shvarim, truah, tekiah, it's 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Then you do tekiah, shvarim, tekiah 3 times. That's 9. Then you do tekiah, repeat that 3 times. Tekiah, truah, tekiah, tekiah. Another 9, so 9, 9, and 12 is what? 30. 18 and 12 is 30. That's how you get the minimum blows of 30 blows that you fill the biblical obligation. And in synagogue, we do 100 sounds, but for a sick person, many people just do 30 sounds. But then you go to a house of someone, you blow for someone, you just do those 30. Now, comes the Gemara, comes Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, if you heard 9 sounds over 9 hours. That means each hour, 1 sound was blown. There's a great chidush that he says is yotzah. You fulfilled your obligation of shofar, even though there were things going on in between. You might have spoke between each sound. What were you doing for an hour? They blew the first sound, let's say, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the second sound at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we say that the interruption does not hold you back from fulfilling the mitzvah. You know, you might have definitely thought that this interruption between each sound, right, would be considered a hefsek, a interruption that you don't fulfill your obligation. Now, of course, I think I saw the Chafetz Chaim writes, you're not supposed to do it this way. You're not supposed to interrupt between each sound and just sound 1 sound at 8 o'clock in the morning and 1 at 9 and 1 at 10. But even if there was this delay, you would fulfill your obligation. Now, so that's the chidush. The Gemara says, we also learned like this in a Braita, Shama Tesha Tikiyot B'Tesha Sha'ot. We are on 34b1. We also learned on top of the page. 34b1. Turn the page. Shama, if you heard Tesha Tikiyot B'Tesha Sha'ot. You heard 9 sounds in 9 hours in the day. Yotza, you fulfill your obligation. Now the Gemara, the Braita continues. What about Mitisha B'nei Adam Ke'echad? If you had 9 people, let's say you go to a wedding, right? Sometimes there's a 9-piece band, right? Everybody's playing an instrument, right? You can have multiple people playing instruments simultaneously. So I have 9 people, each one is blowing a sound simultaneously, like an orchestra. This guy is blowing a tekiah, 9 people. This guy's blowing tekiah, this guy's blowing a chua, this guy's blowing tekiah. The next guy's blowing a tekiah, and next guy's blowing, everyone is doing one of the sounds, right? Like a play. Everyone's doing a sound, and they're all blowing and there's 9 sounds. We said on a Torah level, you only have to do 9 sounds. With 9 sounds, like we said, we had the truah is in the middle, and the truah has to be preceded by a tekiah and followed by a tekiah. It means there's going to be 3 truot and 6 tekiah. Good morning. So you have 3 truot, 6 tekiah. So 6 people are blowing a tekiah, and 3 people are blowing a crying sound, a truah, and they're all doing it at the same time. And I hear all 9 sounds simultaneously. So the question is, do I get credit for the mitzvah of shofar? How do you like that? That's time efficiency, so to speak. Will I get credit for such a blowing? So the text that we have, there are different texts on this. We're going to go with the text that says lo yotza. Tosfos has that text. You did not fulfill your obligation. Why don't you fill the obligation? I heard 9 sounds, and when you, even though they're coming simultaneously, there's a concept. When you have a love for something, when there's a love for something, even if the 2 sounds are coming at the same time, you're able to pay attention and able to hear both. So I'm hearing like this band, I'm hearing this orchestra, I'm hearing all the sounds at the same time. But Tosfos says the problem is, why don't you get credit? Even though I heard all the sounds. When you if you're listening closely to the orchestra and to the band, you might be hearing all the different sounds at the same time when if you have a certain love for it. But Tosfos says the breaking sound, the truest sound, has with the 3 truot that we said have to be preceded by a straight sound and followed by a straight sound. If you're blowing it all simultaneously like a band, so there's nothing preceding the breaking sound, there's nothing following the breaking sound. They're just being done at the same time. So that's how Tosfos explains why you do not get credit for this blowing. That is Tosfos. Morning, Asaf. And Rashi actually brings the text that says that you would get credit. You would fulfill your obligation. When I get the Shulchan Aruch out, Rashi actually brings a text that says that you would get credit. You wouldn't be able to fulfill your obligation if you heard the 9 sounds simultaneously, because of the fact that you have such love for this mitzvah. It's not something that comes every day, something that you cherish very much, something you cherish very much that you have a love for. You could hear the sounds. Now, so if we look at the Shulchan Aruch is in Tisha B'nei Adam Ke'achad. Siman Tuf Kuf Peches. And in Tuf Kuf Pechet, it says the following. As you know, the Gemara is the source for the halacha. Halacha comes from the Gemara, the Mishnah, the Gemara. It says, if you heard 9 blows, 9 hours in the day, like we said before, if it's over 9 hours in the day, you do get credit. But if you heard them from 9 people at the same time, you do not get credit. And he says the reason that we said from Tosfot, and this is the text, the Ber HaGolos, this is a text of the Rambam and the Rosh and other poskim, but you don't have, the issue here is you did not blow a straight sound before the crying sound and a straight sound after the crying sound. You didn't blow a tekiah before and tekiah afterwards. And we said yesterday or the day before, there's a concept of a musar idea, we said also. We don't just start with the crying sound. And we don't end with the crying sound. We start the straight sound. We end the straight sound. If we're going to go ahead and put them, we don't mix them together, the crying and the straight. And therefore, if you put them all together, and we wanted to say it's symbolic, of bitachon, symbolic of confidence in the future, and we don't want to end. We always have to be upbeat. We don't want to end in a mourning. We don't want to end with a cry, because if you're doing that all at the same time, you're really ending with that also. Rather, we end with a straight sound, which represents confidence and strength. So perhaps, there might be a little mussar behind it, but you don't get credit for the mitzvah. Now, the Mishnah continues. The Gemara continues. Tekiah mizeh, the trua mizeh. What about if you have multiple people blowing? One guy blows the first sound. He finishes. Now we have another guy blows the second sound. Now the question is, do you connect his blowing to the other? That's how one of the people I was learning with suggested. The chidush is that do you connect the first guy's blowing to the second guy's blowing? They're 2 different people. Maybe this is this blowing, this is this blowing, and maybe you're not going to look at it like there was a tekiah before. The second guy blew the breaking sound. The first guy blew the straight sound. So are we going to connect the straight sound of the first guy to the breaking sound of the second guy? And that's called the straight sound preceded the breaking sound. Or do we say they're independent of each other, 2 different people? His blowing, he blew a tekiah. This guy blew a trua. And we're not going to connect the breaking sound of the second guy to the crying sound, to the straight sound of the first guy. The chidush is we do connect the dots. We say we join. If Ruvain blew the straight sound and Shimon afterwards blew the breaking sound, we're going to look at it that they're directly connected. And this is the straight sound preceding the breaking sound.
Never seen.
I don't know if the only time you might see it, right? The only time you might have seen that is when the first guy is not able to finish up. It's not coming to show. It's not working.
Okay.
That if it's not working, then you might see someone just takes over. It's very embarrassing, of course, for the person, but that would be the situation that you would see a second guy taking over. Exactly, that would be the general case, but not that people would do that. Ideally, that I'll do one sound, you do the next sound, you'll do the next. That's not something that I've ever seen intentionally being done. So that's what the Gemara is saying. Tekiah mizeh, trua mizeh, yatsa. You fulfill your obligation. Va'afilu b'sirugin. It comes that the chidush is that even if there was time between Asaf blew the first sound, he blew the tekiah, and I blew it 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, we're still going to connect the dots. We're still going to say your tekiah that preceded my blowing, even though it was minutes that lapsed. We're not going to say that when I'm blowing now, later on, it's like a new beginning, because I didn't blow immediately following you. So is that called that I had a blowing before me? It's like nobody blew in the last 5 minutes. It sounds like it looks like I'm beginning the blowing because the last person that blew, Asaf blew 5 minutes ago. But the chidush is that we're going to connect Asaf's blowing at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I blow at 8:05, 8:10, 8:30. He blew the first sound at 8 o'clock. I blew the second sound at 8:30. We're going to look at it, right, Aaron, as if we're directly connected. And my sound followed your sound. And it's called, there was a tekiah straight sound before, and there was a breaking sound that followed. So that's what the Gemara says. That's a again, a big chidush, big novelty, vafilu b'shirugin. Even if there was separation of time, right, Simon, between this sound and that sound. And then the Gemara continues, the writer continues, vafilu kol hayom kulo. Even if this took the whole day, that means Asaf blew at 8 o'clock in the morning, the first sound. I blew the second sound at 9. And then someone else maybe blew the next sound at 10. We're still going to connect all the sounds. And by the end of the day, after 9 hours of the day, we had 9 sounds blown. But good. You fulfilled your obligation, but now you have blown. It's only can blow during the day. As we saw yesterday, the shofar is only by day. So now you fulfilled your mitzvah of shofar.
So long as everybody that was in that house.
As long as, if you were, exactly. For all those people to fill their obligation, they all have to have been there, heard all, they don't have to be in the room, meaning they have to be in the room during those 9 blows, correct. They could have stepped out of the room, as long as they came back, and the Gemara seems to indicate even, would sound like even if they spoke between the sound number 1 at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they spoke, but listen, they prayed in between. What did they do throughout the day? They prayed in between, but they're still going to fulfill their obligation as long as they heard 9 sounds. Each person is fulfilled their obligation. They had to hear 9 sounds of the shofar. So if it took you 9 hours to hear the 9 sounds of the shofar, so be it. You're fine. You got credit for the, there might be an issue. Ralph, you wanted to say something?
Can they carry on their daily activities during those 9 hours?
That's what it sounds like. Now, of course, it shouldn't have been done this way. I wonder about, the bracha. I don't. You said a bracha before you blow the shofar, and now that might be an issue. Good morning, Mark, about that bracha that he said. But we're going to say the Gemara is going to, we say you get credit for the mitzvah. So now the Gemara says, "Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi." Good to see you, Mark. Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Did Rabbi Yochanan say such a halacha? Meaning, it's a very big statement. The name Rabbi Yochanan said. Okay, he does have a bright there to back him up. Rabbi Yochanan, just to bring Mark up to date, Rabbi Yochanan said that if you heard 9 sounds, which are the biblical amount of sounds you need to blow on the holiday of Rosh Hashana, if you heard it throughout the day, 1 sound every hour, you get credit for the mitzvah, even though there was such a great delay in the performance of the mitzvah, right? They have the performance of the mitzvah was the blowing of the shofar, and you had such a delay, and you get credit for this mitzvah. Now, I want to point out that, when, let's say you do hamotzi lechem in haaretz, right? And let's say you have a challah roll, you have an ounce of challah, but if you delay there, a guy might say, Rabbi, I ate the roll over an hour. It took me an hour, or an hour a roll is much more than an ounce. Well, let's say I ate my ounce, 1 slice of bread, over an hour. It took me an hour to eat it. There's no now, in order to be obligated to Birkat HaMazon, you have to have the kazayit within around 7 minutes. You have to have that 1 ounce of bread in 7 minutes. You're not supposed to have the ounce of bread over a longer period of time. That's not called a real, that's the issue, because that's not called real eating. Real eating is the way people would eat is generally to eat a certain amount of bread within a certain amount of time. So you have to be careful. Someone's married, their wife should be careful to have that ounce of bread, that slice of bread, within around 7 minutes, right? That's what you need to go ahead and do. But here we're not talking about eating. For eating, there are different laws, exactly how much time, let's say similarly when the mitzvah of matzah, right? When you eat matzah on Pesach, and you have, let's say you prepare the size, the measurement of matzah that you need to eat, you don't have hours to eat that matzah, that gezayit, that specific amount, the minimum amount that you have to eat. You have to do it over a certain amount of time, within a certain amount of time. But here we're not talking, right, Mr. Haber, we're talking about the shofar. We're not talking about eating matzah. We're talking about shofar. So when it comes to the shofar, then we say, after the fact, not the chatchila, but after the fact, if you spread it out over 9 hours, and each hour you got one sound, you get credit for that. You got credit for that mitzvah. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Now comes the Gemara, and the Gemara questions Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, we have a different statement. Rabbi Yochanan said, Mishum Rab Shimon ben Yehotzadak. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Shimon ben Yehotzadak, what did he quote? He said, and Hallel u'Megillah. If let's say you were reading the Hallel on the Yom Tov, or you were reading the Megillah on Purim, right? So if you were reading the Hallel, now, or you were reading the Megillah, im sha'a kedei ligma et kula. If you delayed in the middle, let's say you stopped in the middle, you delayed in the middle, and then you delayed an amount of time that would take you to read the whole Megillah, or the amount of time to read the Hallel. So let's say it takes you about, Hallel takes you about 10 minutes, right? And if you delayed in the middle of the Hallel, let's say the recital of the Hallel takes you, let's say, 10 minutes. And you're in the middle of saying Hallel, you said the first chapter of Hallel. Then after you said the first chapter of Hallel, you interrupted and you stopped, you delayed, and then 10 minutes later, you went ahead and now you started continuing the Hallel. So this opinion says, if you waited the amount of time that would have taken you to recite the Hallel from the beginning to the end, or similarly, you were reading the Megillah. They were reading the Megillah, and let's say the Baal Koreh, something happened to the Baal Koreh, so they can't read anymore. And let's say the reading of the Megillah takes you about 40 minutes, and it took them 45 minutes to find another Baal Koreh. The next Baal Koreh, the next one is where he was on the other side of town. So does he have to start from the beginning? You have to go back to the beginning. Let's say he's up to the last chapter of it, let's say towards the end. Let's say that's chapter 9, and it takes 40 minutes. You have to, this opinion says, if you delayed the amount of time that would take you to read the Megillah from the beginning to the end, you have to redo the Megillah. So since that's the case, so certainly if you delayed between the blowings of the shofar, that means there was amount of time between the sound number 1 and sound number 2, an hour. Now you could have blown the 9 sounds. The time to take 9 sounds takes you a couple of minutes, or a minute, 2 minutes, and you waited an hour. You stopped in the middle of your mitzvah, because the mitzvah is to blow 9 sounds, and you stopped in the middle. So according to this, you should not fulfill your obligation. How does Rabbi Yochanan say that if you stopped in the middle of your blowing of the shofar and you delayed, let's say, an hour in between each blow, each sound, you get credit. But he said, if you stop in the middle of the performance of Hallel, if you stop in the middle, if you delay in the middle of the performance of reading the Megillah, if there's a certain level amount of time of delay, you got to go ahead and redo it. That's the Gemara's that's the Gemara's question. But I think right. So, by the way, I think we missed a line before. The Gemara said when you heard from 9 different people, I feel a b'sirugin, right? That's even if there was a large amount of interruption between each person, we said Rabbi Yochanan's the Breita says that you get credit. Even took the Kol Hayom Kulo, even if it took the whole day. And over here we see that if you have a delay, a much shorter delay, it didn't take you a whole day. You just delayed the amount of time you could say the whole Hallel, or the amount of time you would read the Megillah. You got to do it over again. Chozel Rosh, you got to start again. So the Gemara answers lo kasha. The Gemara says there is no contradiction. Why not? Because it's 2 different people. That means one statement is Rabbi Yochanan's personal opinion. The other statement is Rabbi Yochanan in the name of somebody else, in the name of his rabbi. A rabbi has a right to argue on their rabbi, right? Rabbi David Feinstein had a right to argue on his father, Moshe Feinstein. You have to be very big to be able to to argue on your father. So too. So here, the statement, Rabbi Yochanan, that he said it in his own name, Rabbi Yochanan said so and such a thing, that if you heard from 9 people over 9 hours in the day, you get credit, good morning, that's his own opinion. But when he said that if you delayed in the middle, let's say of the Megillah, or you delayed in the middle of Hallel, and you delayed a certain amount of time, and that will make it morning mark, that will make you have to do it again? That's his rabbi. And what was his rabbi's name? His rabbi, that's why he quoted Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadak. That was Rabbi Yochanan name was Shimon Yotzadak. That's his quoting his rabbi. Now, then the Gemara challenges it. The Gemara says, you know what? I have a story which seems to indicate otherwise, which seems to indicate that Rabbi Yochanan himself is concerned and would hold that if you delayed in the middle, you would have to do it again. V'didei lo, the Gemara says, and he himself, Rabbi Yochanan himself, does not admit to his rabbi's opinion. We have a story of Rabbi Avohu Havishoka v'Ozrei Batrei Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Avohu was following his rabbi Rabbi Yochanan, v'Havi Korei Kriyat Shema. Rabbi Avohu was reading the Shema. Kimata l'mevuot b'tunafot. When they passed certain alleyways that had, dirt, it was dirty from people's bathroom, you're using it as a bathroom, and you can't read the Shema, ishtik. He was quiet. He delayed in the middle. Rabbi Avohu delayed in the middle of his Shema. He was in the middle of reading the Shema. He stopped in the middle, and then he was saying Shema. He was saying the Kriyat Shema. Let's say it was a time, let's say it was in the morning, and we know the Shema has a certain time. Therefore, everyone must be careful to say the Shema by a certain time. If you go to a 9 o'clock meeting Shabbat morning, you're not going to make the Shema. Got to say it early. So maybe he was traveling. He didn't say the Shema yet. He wanted to make sure he got it in there, and now, but he had to stop in the middle. So now the question is, if he stopped in the middle, now, and does he have to go back and start again from the beginning? And stay tuned tomorrow. We'll see more about it. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. All the best. Ralph, thank you for being on. Thank you everybody for being here. Have a great day. Thank you. You got it. Bye-bye. Yes, I don't want to make you late for the minyan. Now you got to be ready to do it very